eastern England having clear spells through the evening. And the showers elsewhere will tend to fade away this evening as well, so many will have a dry night. Later in the night, the clouds thickening up again and some wetter weather returning to northwest England and southwest Scotland. With clearer spells, it'll be a pretty chilly night, actually, because certainly compared to earlier in the week, temperatures in some rural spots down to single figures. Generally a fine start to the weekend. The main exception to that will be far south of Scotland and northwest England. One or two showers coming into Wales and the southwest early on, but generally it'll be a dry and a sunny start. There's that wetter weather, not great across the lakes early on and the far south of Scotland. A few showers in the south of Northern Ireland too, and across the Highlands of Scotland. But again, a good part of central and northern Scotland will start the weekend dry and sunny. And overall, a drier day tomorrow across the west coast of Scotland compared to today. That heavier rain, though, over northern England and southern Scotland will tend to shift, and it'll break up a little bit, so it won't be cloudy all day. There'll be some sunny spells, but some heavier showers in this zone across the Midlands, Wales and northeast England into the afternoon. The odd rumble of thunder is possible. Much of the southeast staying dry. As I said, a drier day for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Feeling warm in the sunshine, cooling off when the downpours come along. And there'll still be quite a few of those heavy showers over England and Wales during Saturday evening, eastern Scotland also, but they should tend to fade away and disappear for Sunday, because Sunday looks like a fine day by and large, generally fine and sunny, and signs of something a bit hotter into next week.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Gary King. In Kent, the anti-clockwise M25 long delays at the moment after an earlier breakdown just before the Dartford Tunnel. Delays all the way back towards junction 3 at the M20. In Surrey, the M25 anti-clockwise 2 lanes closed, long delays due to a breakdown. It's just before junction 9 at Leatherhead. Delays though now back towards junction 12 at the M3. In Berkshire, the westbound M4 looking busy after an earlier accident around junction 13 at Chieveley. In Leicestershire, the northbound M1 has a lane closed and delays. It's all due to an accident just before junction 24 at Nottingham South. And in South Yorkshire, the northbound M1, there's a lane closed, long delays due to recovery work after a breakdown just before junction 35A at Stocksbridge.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
£30,000 in cash has to be won. It's our biggest cash prize so far, and it could be yours. Charles was a winner. Listen to what he says about winning the Great British Giveaway.
I'm Charles. I'm on £18,000 cash. It was just amazing, and as soon as it goes into your bank account, it just changed. It's a life-changing thing.
The next big winner could be you, with an extra £30,000 cash in your bank. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, GB News brings you accurate reporting of the day's topical agenda.
When the news breaks, wherever and whenever it's happening,
we'll be there.
This is GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's 6 o'clock. I'm Michelle Dewberry and this is Dewbs & Co. Coming up tonight, the Olympics finally kicks off tonight. I've got to say, against a backdrop of utter carnage. Is it all worth it? You tell me. And the Tory leadership race is hotting up. Much debate about which direction the party needs to go in. Your thoughts on that, and also the topic of leaving the ECHR is certainly not going away. So should we leave or should we stay? And as many predicted, Labour looks set to announce a black hole in the public finances. The perfect excuse then to raise taxes. And a Pride festival is under fire for allowing one of their stallholders, Stand Up to Racism in case you're wondering, to have a game of toss a milkshake over Nigel Farage. I mean, come on now.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family. Simply go to gbnews.com/your say.
Yes, I've got all of that and more. Not least, by the way, have you seen the latest update on this Manchester airport situation? Lots of press conferences and so on and so forth. But what I want to know is, how is the actual police officer that had her nose broken? Anyone? Any information? Get in touch. Tell me your thoughts on all of that. But first, the 6 o'clock news headlines.
Michelle, thank you, and good evening to you. It is exactly 1 minute past 6, and the top story tonight: the police watchdog has launched a criminal investigation into an officer who was filmed kicking and stamping on a man's head at Manchester Airport. The IOPC is looking into whether his use of force was acceptable. 3 armed police were seriously injured as they attended to reports of an assault, which happened before the events seen in the video, which has now been shared widely online. There have also been widespread protests following the incident on Tuesday, with demonstrators blocking the city's tram lines and roads. People travelling to the Paris Olympics are experiencing massive delays after vandals targeted the rail networks. Coordinated arson attacks on high-speed lines have also crippled Eurostar, with 1 in 4 services cancelled. It's not known who was behind the vandalism or why. The disruption comes just hours ahead of the official start of tonight's Paris Olympics. Here, a rapist who threw a boy off a cliff to try to cover up his crimes has been sentenced today to life in prison. Anthony Stocks raped and sexually assaulted a girl multiple times between 2019 and 2022. When she confided in a boy, Stocks threw him off a cliff. Miraculously, he did survive, but continues to suffer ongoing health issues. Stocks was convicted of a number of crimes, including attempted murder and rape, and he'll now spend at least 19 years behind bars. An alternative healer has been found guilty of gross negligence manslaughter following the death of a woman at a slapping therapy workshop. Hong Chi Zhao, who has no medical qualifications, preached the benefits of hitting yourself to rid the body of toxins. Danielle Cargom stopped taking her diabetes medication after going along to one of his seminars in Wiltshire and died in 2016. In other news, drivers are still paying too much for petrol amid warnings that the industry is failing consumers. The Competitions and Markets Authority issued a report last year that found fuel prices were significantly above historic levels. But a year on, it's seen little progress and says retailers are still failing to pass on a drop in wholesale prices to motorists. It says the government should use new laws to force companies to be more transparent about their pricing. And it comes as the margin of petrol at supermarkets remains roughly double what it was in 2019. The Health Secretary has called the NHS broken following a report into the regulator that oversees care services across the country. An independent review found significant failings at the Care Quality Commission. The CQC inspects around 90,000 services, including hospitals and GP practices. The regulator says it accepts those findings, but Wes Streeting told us earlier he's still stunned.
There are, cases of hospitals not being inspected for over a decade, a care provider that hadn't been inspected since 2015, and even the ratings that are published and that we use as the public to make choices about where to receive health or care, some of those are frankly bogus because of the way in which they've been put together based on either partial inspections or piecing together more recent inspections with historic verdicts on those health and care providers.
Wes Streeting there speaking to us earlier. Well, Mel Stride has become the 4th Conservative MP to enter the race to become the party's next leader. The Shadow Work and Pension Secretary now joins James Cleverly, Tom Tugendhat and Robert Jenrick in the contest to take over from Rishi Sunak. He says the Tories, though, should avoid veering too far to the right and focus on unity. In Australia, doctors are working to reattach a surfer's leg after he was attacked by a shark. Kai McKenzie, who's 23, was surfing near Port Macquarie on Tuesday morning. That's about 250 miles from Sydney, when he was bitten by a 3-metre-long great white shark. He managed to catch a wave to shore, though, where an off-duty police officer helped him stem the bleeding. And in an extraordinary twist, his severed leg later washed ashore and was put on ice by quick-thinking locals. Doctors now working to see whether it can be reattached. And finally, to the US, where the first TV ad for Kamala Harris's presidential bid has just hit the screens. Take a listen.
We choose freedom.
Well, featuring that soundtrack by Beyoncé, who's given her blessing to the Vice President, the ad touches on gun violence, healthcare and abortion, while casting Donald Trump as a convicted criminal. And it comes as a new poll by the New York Times tonight, and Siena College puts Miss Harris level with Mr Trump, a stark turnaround from the previous poll, which had Joe Biden trailing by 6 points. Those are the latest headlines from the GB Newsroom for now. I'm Sam Francis, back with you for another update at 7 o'clock.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much for that. Slapping therapy. I mean, do some people just believe absolutely anything in this society or what? Would you have fallen for that? Get in touch, your thoughts. I'm Michelle Dewberry. I'm with you till 7 o'clock tonight. Alongside with my panel, the director of the Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, and the trade unionist and author, Paul Embry. Good evening to both of you.
Good to be with you. Good evening.
I can't wait to open Dewberry Tavern tonight. I will confess, I cannot wait, but wait we shall do, because there's a lot to get through before we get stuck into that. You know the drill. You know how to get hold of me tonight. You can email gbviews@gbnews.com. You can go to the website gbnews.com/yoursay and talk to me and each other there. Or, of course, you can go to Twitter and you can tweet or X me. But wherever you are tonight, you're very, very welcome indeed. Now, of course, tonight marks the opening ceremony of the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. Simple question for you. Are you into the Olympics? Are you excited? What are you most looking forward to? And how do you think that Team GB are actually going to fare? Let's cross live to our reporter in Paris, Sophie Reaper is there. Good evening to you. I've got to start, Sophie, by saying this whole event has been brought in right in front of a backdrop of what I would say chaos. Chaotic scenes today. Tell us more.
Well, Michelle, it's been a very dramatic start here in Paris this morning with what's been described as coordinated criminal acts of arson. That's on the French high-speed rail network this morning. Prosecutors in Paris saying that they are now carrying out a national investigation with those crimes potentially carrying sentences of 15 to 20 years. Now, the SNCF, a French rail network, said that this had affected areas, the north, the east and the west of Paris, that there was attempt as well in the southeast, but that attempt was foiled. Now, hundreds of thousands of people have been affected by this damage caused to the high-speed rail network, with the knock-on effect, of course, also being faced by people in the UK. Now, there was concerns about Team GB athletes making it over, but in the last couple of hours we have heard from Team GB and they've confirmed that although there were 2 athletes making their way over today, that they both both arrived safely here in Paris this morning, so there will be no disruption to Team GB's athletes. However, when it comes to fans, they may find a different story waiting for them. Of course, knock on the Eurostar, knock on down in Dover. I imagine our airports will be facing a flux of passengers attempting to board their flights over to Paris, especially those who will be seeing events over this weekend. They really need to make an effort to get over to Paris as soon as they possibly can. So not an ideal start here in Paris. I'm sure it's not the start that the French Olympic Committee would have wanted, but they've got to pick themselves up and dust themselves off, because it will soon be the start of Paris 2024.
Very much for that. One of my viewers has got in touch on the website. Philip, he says, yes, I like the Olympics. I like the ladies' beach volleyball. I bet you do. I bet you do. Your thoughts on the Olympics, Mark?
I love sports. The Olympics is not for me. These people are great athletes, Michelle, but it's basically skipping, hopping and jumping. I much prefer sports that have tactics involved in them, like football or cricket or rugby, rather than just sprint races. This is supposed to be, by the way, one thing I do like about the Olympics, Michelle, it's supposed to be amateur athletics, right? So why is the French government spending €9 billion on all of this fanfare? Just put these people in a stadium and let's see how far they can throw a javelin or how quickly they can run round the track. Should come nearly for free.
Blimey, Mark.
He's an old libertarian curmudgeon. It's all about the money. It's all about the $9 billion.
Well, nobody's turning up, Paul.
This is
they can't
fantastic.
sell out the tickets.
Once every 4 years.
They can't sell out the tickets.
It's a festival of the best sports people in the world coming together. And I love it. I think it's a great event. And it's really sad what's happened, actually. On a serious note, I think it's appalling. And the mindset of people who think they can disrupt the Olympics like this and ruin millions of people's enjoyment, you have to wonder, you know, the mindset of those sorts of people, what goes through their head when they do that. And, you know, you can only hope that those people are quickly traced and brought to justice. But I don't know how you guard against that. I don't.
But hang on, it's quite likely. I don't know. I'm speculating a coordinated activity.
Well, I think it clearly is.
I mean, I think the Russians are the first prime suspects. We don't know. This isn't just a bunch of teenagers having a laugh. This looks pretty coordinated.
Whether it's the Russians, I mean, I think we need to be careful. It could be. I mean,
I don't know.
They were responsible for Salisbury, but at the same time, we were also told the Russians were responsible for Trump getting elected.
But it looks coordinated.
We were told that the Russians were responsible for Brexit, and it turned out that all of that stuff was completely overblown. So I always take any suggestion that it's the Russians.
No, I agree. But you do think it looks coordinated?
Oh, I think it's clearly coordinated because there were 3 rail lines involved, and it all happened overnight. But how you guard against that, I'm not sure, because I don't think you can have 24-hour security on rail lines in the countryside and whatever. So if people are determined to do this sort of thing and to wreck the enjoyment of everybody else, then it may be gratuitous. It may be teenage gangs who have coordinated it, but it may be gratuitous in that respect, or it might be a state agent, or it might be somebody trying to make a political protest.
We need to keep calm and carry on.
If it is a political protest, why haven't they laid claim to it already?
Keep calm, carry on, and just keep watching Dewbs and Co. We're much more interesting than the opening ceremony anyway. That's what I think. Look, there's a very squeaky chair. Is that you?
That's me.
I can hear a very
I told you my square was too short and too squeaky. You look taller than me.
I was trying to be professional and styling that out, but I think I've lasted about 2 minutes before. I might get you some WD-40 or something in the break.
Are you going to apply it?
Yeah, look, I might do. Look, another story that I want to touch on tonight as well is the whole situation in Manchester Airport. By now, you're all familiar with what's happening. The officer there that's involved, he is now going to be undergoing criminal investigation. Of course, you know that he's been removed from duty. But I don't condone anyone being kicked in the head or anything like that. Let me just make that clear. But there's something about this whole incident that's making me quite uncomfortable, and that is, in part, the response to it. Because we heard Andy Burnham today. I mean, he's doing a press conference on it, and there seems to be this focus on the community. The community this and the community that, and we're going to meet with community leaders, and we're doing this and we're doing that. Since when was law and order and right and wrong decided by community activists?
Michelle, you've absolutely nailed it. There's a specific incident here that involves one police officer and 1 civilian. And this should be investigated properly. I was actually saw on GB News last night was the first time I saw the few seconds of footage. I understand if you see all of the footage, it might tell a different story. The Greater Manchester Police should look into this properly. It looks like they are, and work out whether that was a proportionate response. This is not about communities or groups or identities.
But it
shouldn't be.
That's what it's become about, and this is my worry.
It is about the guy on the ground and the police officer. And I have no view yet on whether that police officer overreacted, nor should I have one. That should be investigated. And there shouldn't be protests on the streets or statements, frankly, from Andy Berman until the Greater Manchester Police have got to the bottom of what occurred. And it looks like they're doing their job quickly, thoroughly and sensibly. And that's the way it should be.
Let's listen to a little bit of Andy Burnham from this afternoon.
What people here don't want, and I heard this very clearly in the room this morning, is politicians without possession of the facts, exploiting the situation for their own political agenda with zero regard for the effect on the ground in communities in Greater Manchester.
Paul Ember, your thoughts?
It looks bad. It does look bad, but context is everything. And as Mark said, we don't quite know what the context of the incident was. And it is important that it's investigated before people jump to conclusions. But I can't think of what context might exist to justify what a police officer did to someone who, at that moment in time, clearly or didn't appear to be posing a threat. And there was a kick to the head and there was a stamp to the head. So I can't think of circumstances.
He might have held something in his hand.
Well,
I don't know. That would be a circumstance.
Well, but he was clearly prostrate on the floor.
Might have something in your hand for sake of argument. I'm speculating.
And it's possible. But in those circumstances, looking at it as we've all done, I can't really think of a context in which that immediate action was justified. But at the same time, I'm not going to condemn the officer on the basis of TV footage. I do agree that I think it's right that an investigation needs to take place before he's hung, drawn and quartered. Going back to the other point about community leaders, I mean, that phrase is used all the time, isn't it? Who elects these people? Who elects community leaders? Where do they get their mandate from?
Self-appointed.
They seem to me to be, well, I was just going to say, they seem to me to be self-appointed people who somehow have risen to have influence within their particular community and are then, almost by default, seen as the go-to people. If there's an issue in this community, the police are somehow obliged to go and speak to community leaders. Now, I don't think police should feel that obliged, actually, because for me, that seems to bypass the democratic process. Yep. If you want to speak to local councillors, that's fine. If you want to speak to youth club leaders, for example, who play a particular role, then that's fine. But
community leaders very vague.
Just because someone says to you, "He's our leader," you know.
But there's a thing here about our political leaders, surely. Michelle, you teed it up. Andy Burnham holds a press conference in front of the television cameras saying it would be quite wrong for politicians to comment upon this until we know the facts. So why the hell have you convened a press conference?
But then credit to, I mean, put yourself in the place of Andy Burnham. He's probably sitting there and he's probably worried about mass civil unrest. He's probably worried about his city essentially getting trashed.
Well, you think that press conference is going to solve that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I was just looking at what George Galloway said. He's written really long messages. He's met with all the family and so on and so forth. But he's saying everyone should display patience and calm. We believe in justice. And he's calling for this protest that's been organised this weekend not to go ahead. But I guess, I mean, let's not lose sight of the facts. And again, I don't want to preempt any outcomes because I think that's wrong. And I don't know how we've ended up in this society where if someone doesn't like an outcome, they're going to take to the streets and they're going to cause problem to intimidate outcomes. And I kind of, where's the conversation about the woman, the police officer? Because according to the police force, she's had her nose broken. Now, it was only a few days ago on this programme that I was having the conversation about some kind of national emergency had been declared about violence against women and girls. So why is there not more focus?
I presume, I haven't looked at the assailants, but I presume whoever broke that woman police officer's nose is going to be charged and face criminal...
Well, so
I mean, if they caught them, if they've got them,
You've had
right?
people arrested and then been for a fray, I think it was, and then released on bail. There's just something
Well, that's
about
GBH if
this
you break
whole
somebody's
situation.
nose. That's grievous bodily harm.
Yeah, but then where's the updates on this officer? Why are there no updates on her condition?
I agree
or
with
the ones that was injured who apparently went to hospital? The whole thing strikes me as being a little bit odd, but I'm just uncomfortable with this notion that communities are dictating the outcomes of law and order. I mean, we saw it in Hare Hills the other day, didn't we, when those children, apparently, there was enough cause for concern among, the social services and so on to remove children from the family.
Mm-hmm.
People take to the streets, start setting fire to buses and fridges and trashing their neighbourhood, and then lo and behold, guess what happens? The children are placed back with members of the family. Now, they're either at risk or they're not at risk, and if they are at risk, and I really hope to God that they've not been put into a place where they shouldn't be, just because grown men, let's face it, seem to think that they've got some kind of right to set fire to their own streets.
There is a danger of the police responding to mob rule. And I think there is the fear amongst people.
That ship sailed, and this is what I'm saying to you. I think that ship has sailed, and I think that is exactly the scenario that we find ourselves in now, and it's been going on forever. I mean, I always hark about Batley grammar teacher. I'll always go on about this. You allowed a teacher to be hounded out of their livelihood, to go into hiding. You allowed it. You tear the blind eyes, then what happens is you embolden people to think that if they don't like something, guess what? They can take to the streets en masse, and they can threaten violence and intimidation in order to sway outcomes. I think it's a very worrying situation that we find ourselves in. Look, he's got a lot more to say, but he'll have to hold that thought because there's a lot I've got to get through tonight, I can tell you now. I want to talk to you about Rachel Reeves. Apparently, she's going to find this massive black hole in public spending. Is it time for tax rises? Is that what's coming our way? And would you support that? See you in 2.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Karen Stevenson was born in Stoke-on-Trent and read music at Trinity College, Cambridge. She's played cello with many of the world's great orchestras under the batons of some of the most renowned conductors, and she joins me now to discuss her career and the importance of music in education. Tell me about that. What is your role at the Philharmonia?
My role at the Philharmonia is number 2 cello. I've been there for about 15 years. Sometimes I play number 1 cello as well, which is a great opportunity for me.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I often think what a very difficult life it is to be a professional musician.
I make a living out of it. It is definitely possible. Yeah, we don't really like it when we get into a taxi and someone says, "What's your day job?" Because we work really hard.
I was kind of making the opposite point. Not that you'd also have a day job. I think the perfection that is required for a professional musician is extraordinary. On the whole, we are intolerant of mistakes in classical music.
Yes, we are.
And I just wondered whether you don't become very frustrated with a world in which everything else is imperfect.
You are only as good as your last concert, Michael. That's how it feels. It is a lot of pressure. Sometimes we will say, OK, a pint for every wrong note or something, but depending on the piece of music, that could be quite dangerous.
How many hours a day do you have to practice?
You have to practice much more when you're younger, I think, when you're learning. I think this is really important. And when you're at music college. I'm a busy, I'm travelling, I have a family. I can't practice as much as I used to, so you have to rely on your experience. What I really wanted to say is that there's been a lot of fear-mongering about classical music being in decline and it not being relevant, and I really wanted to say that I don't think that's the case. Our audiences have increased. They're the highest they've been in 10 years.
The People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody
in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm with you till 7 o'clock tonight alongside me, Mark Littlewood and Paul Embry-Remain. He's just been chuntering in the break. He's not happy that breakdancing is now an Olympic sport. What do you think to that? Are you a break dancer? Do you reckon that that is the kind of thing that should be in Olympics or not? Right, let's cut to the chase then when it comes to tax rises now. There was a lot of speculation, wasn't there, about whether or not taxes were going to be increased, where the Labour Party actually saying this line about they're not going to raise taxes on working families, and all along there was suspicions, Mark, that what was going to happen, she was going to pick up the box and go, didn't realise that was there, bosh, there's your tax rise. Is this what we're going to see play out?
That's certainly what the Labour government is claiming. It's not very plausible, because all of the numbers have been in the public domain forever. There's no hidden book behind the number 10 or number 11 sofa in which they've suddenly found a new number. Paul Johnson from the incredibly neutral middle-of-the-road Institute for Fiscal Studies this morning was saying, sorry, all the numbers are in the public domain. They have been for months. Rachel Reeves is claiming there is a £20 billion black hole in the public finances. Michelle, I've got news for you and for Rachel Reeves. It is far worse than that. The overall debt position of the UK is something like £7 trillion, 7,000 billion. She's just measuring what is the budget against the OBR's forecast this year. This would be a bit like me worrying that I'd lost a pound coin behind the back of the sofa while I was 100 grand overdrawn at the bank. So she's talking about the pound coin she's lost behind the sofa. We are colossally overdrawn. Public spending is going to have to fall. And our politicians have got to admit it. And, Michelle, you ask about the tax rate.
So
I'm sure there'll be one, but I don't think they can raise any more in tax. We are taxing to the max already.
But then do you concede, then, that the Tories have left the economy in a diabolical state?
Yes.
Good. That was easy. Paul Embry, do you reckon we're heading for tax cuts? Tax rises, actually, not tax cuts.
They should be honest about it. The country needs massive investment. We're an undeveloping country. The NHS is failing. People can't get in to see their GP or their dentist. We've got a housing crisis. And it needs remedying, and it needs remedying by government stepping up to the plate and spending money.
But, Paul, we've done that on the NHS for years now.
But it also needs reform. The NHS also needs reform.
We've been throwing money at it for years.
I appreciate
the Conservatives threw tons of money at it.
I appreciate that the NHS also needs reform, but it also needs money. And the truth is, Mark, as I've said on this show many times, we are a rich country. We are not a poor country. The problem is too much wealth is concentrated in too few hands. When you live in a country where the richest 5 families have got as much wealth as the poorest 20%, or more wealth, actually, than the poorest 20% of the population, and the gap between rich and poor continues widening to the point where we have got very appalling wealth and income inequality. Now, you would say, I know, well, that's fine. Let the rich get as rich as they possibly want to. Let's encourage them. Low taxes, low regulation. They'll become billionaires, and some of that wealth will eventually trickle down to people.
No, it won't trickle down because Paul, more and more of them are leaving. More millionaires are leaving Britain per capita than any other country in the world.
The point is, well, many people on your side of politics
doesn't need to trickle down. You're taxing them.
Do say that. They say they believe in the trickle-down theory.
No, I can't think of an economist who really believes in trickle-down.
The only way in reality that you close the gap between rich and poor is by the government intervening and seeking to redistribute wealth.
I'm not talking about... Hang on, we've tested this to death.
I'm not talking about punitive taxation.
Well, it's pretty goddamn punitive.
Actually, we are not overtaxed in this country compared to international standards.
The top 1% pay 25%.
Our tax burden, Mark, is lower than a lot of countries.
38% overall.
It's still lower. It's slightly higher than normal by historical standards in Britain.
The highest
it's
been in our lifetime.
Lower than many European countries.
Yeah, but hang on, Paul. You've got to parcel this out. The total tax burden could go up. We could charge people more for buying a pint of beer or buying something in a shop. Your argument was about making the tax burden on the rich higher. The rich, not the general base of tax.
It'd be a start.
Well, the top 1% of income earners pay about a quarter of income tax. The top
No,
10% pay more than half.
It's more than that. The top 1% pay 30% of all income.
There you go. And the top 10% pay more than half.
They pay 60%, yeah.
What thanks do they get? These people should have blue plaques on walls.
Play me the world's smallest violin, Mark.
These shouldn't be the smallest, because they're leaving Britain because of this treatment.
Well, so they're holding the country to ransom, aren't they?
No, they're just leaving.
Yeah, well, exactly. They're holding the country to ransom.
There's no ransom. They're just exiting.
Unless the government does what we want as rich people with the ability to be able to exert influence through our power, through our wealth on democratically elected governments, unless that government do what we want, we're going to upset.
No, they're not saying that, Paul. They're just quietly walking out.
I've said on this show many times, when people at the other end of the scale do that, Mark, when a trade unionist in the public sector goes on strike and says, actually, because of the cost of living, I need more wages, and if you don't give them to me, I'm going to take strike action, they're always condemned as holding the country to ransom. But the people at the top who have got an enormous amount of wealth, whenever they threaten to disrupt the country.
No, but hang on. Let
me finish. And to disrupt the economy, you say we have to indulge these people. They're leaving the country.
I'm not saying
we have to give these people what they want. They're the most important people.
Fortunately, we don't.
If every rich person, Mark, fell under a bus tomorrow, society in Britain would still function, because the people teaching the kids in the schools, the people sweeping the roads, the people driving the buses, the people walking the streets, police officers walking the beat will still be doing their productive work. But if every public sector worker fell under a bus tomorrow, society would come to a grinding halt.
But neither of those are going to happen. There's not that many buses that people can fall under.
But I'm explaining the difference between the value of people in society.
We agree that we would like more millionaires and billionaires in Britain, not fewer.
No, I don't want more billionaires.
You don't want more billionaires?
You
don't want Elon Musk to come over and open factories?
I don't want...
you don't want millionaires to stay here? And by the way, when the millionaires leave, they're not holding anybody to ransom. They're just leaving. When the trade unions go on strike, they want more of my money. No millionaire has ever left this country and demanded more of my money.
But you presumably then, Mark, you don't use public services, you don't use the roads.
Of course I do.
You don't use the roads. You've never used the GP surgery.
You accept people should be able to leave the country voluntarily.
I'm not saying people shouldn't be able to leave the country voluntarily. But my point is,
this is going to affect your tax burden.
Let them go. If the rich,
your tax receipts are going to fall.
If the rich, if the rich are prepared to say to democratically elected governments, unless you do what we want, then we will up sticks and leave. Then you've got two choices as a government. You say, actually, we need to indulge these people because we want their taxes. Or you say, actually, we cannot be held to ransom in that way. We want to create a fairer society. We want to rebalance the economy in favour of working people. We want to see redistribution of wealth. And if that means that some of these people are going to have to go, then
there's no ransom.
We survived before they came along.
We will
survive when they go.
We will survive. But if we could attract more millionaires and billionaires to these shores...
By doing everything they want.
Not everything they want to make it attract. I want more billionaires to come to Britain. And then we can tax them, not punitively, but reasonably. Then we'll have more in the public accounts, and then we can actually do better things.
And it will all trickle down to people...
It's not trickle down, it's literally confiscation. That's what tax is. If you're earning £1 million a year, we will tax you near as damn it half of it. It's not trickle down, it goes straight to your socialist government.
These Thatcherite arguments, this kind of Reaganomics, that it's all about the supply side, it's about
tax revenue.
It's all about encouraging businesses, and it's all about giving rich people effectively what they want, rolling back the frontiers of the state, letting people get
most rich people don't want to hand over half of their income.
It doesn't work. It didn't work in the UK in the 80s. It didn't work in America.
So what are you saying to the top 1% of earners who, as Michelle points out, contribute 30% of income tax receipts? You can say thank you?
Well, in absolute terms, of course. I'm not suggesting...
thanks would be nice.
I'm not suggesting that that's a trifling amount, but in terms of their
Thank you for your great contribution to society. Thank you for all the doctors and nurses and teachers you pay for. Thank you for all the welfare you pay for.
In terms of their overall wealth, actually, it's not a huge amount that they're paying out of
a third? Nearest down a third.
As billionaires, they are still...
Not billionaires, the top 1% of earners.
Fine, but as billionaires or millionaires, they are still very...
Millionaires, people earning, say, 200 grand a year.
And I think there is plenty of scope when you look at the wealth that is within the country and the fact that it's concentrated in too few hands. I think there's plenty of scope for saying, actually, we could raise...
Do you think we should offer them a bit of thanks? for their huge contribution to the public exchequer.
Why would we thank a millionaire or a billionaire?
Not a millionaire or a billionaire.
For paying his or her taxes. Would you thank a cleaner on the minimum wage?
Yes, I do.
Right,
I always thank a cleaner once they've cleaned the office. Yeah,
that's fine. That's fine. I'm willing to thank a billionaire.
But in terms of bangs for your bucks, if you're earning big money here, not only are you probably helping the economy through what you're doing, you are contributing enormously to the welfare state, the NHS,
Can I
the
just bring
education
some
system.
stats into this? I want to bring some stats. Right, the average public spend across the UK per head is £12,500. Right, so for each and every one of us, that's the average public spending. Someone on a salary of, let's just say, roughly about £37,000, they pay about £7,000 or so. So they're not washing their face, they're not paying, they're not putting into the system what they're receiving. Someone that earns about 150 grand spends about £60,000 on tax. So they're paying for about 5 people. So your worker on £150 is paying the way of 5 individuals. And you've got to be realistic about this, Paul. That person is probably going to privately educate their children. They're probably going to have private health. When you start earning more money, so let's just say you're on about, I don't know, 350, well, I'm just picking figures out my thin air, you get not a penny personal allowance. So you're not allowed to earn a penny tax-free. You lose child benefit. You get no child benefit. You get no free childcare. Your pensional amount, when it comes to tax benefits, becomes so negligible it's laughable. How much more do you think that those people should have to pay?
I'm not arguing that we should confiscate the entire wealth of those people. I'm simply saying that when you look at the wealth and income divide in this country, and you look at where wealth is concentrated, and you actually look at the fact that we are still a rich country, but the wealth is in too few hands. My argument is that there's more scope for taking some more from the very rich within society.
But can I just say this as well? 150 grand there or thereabouts is paying the way of about 5 people. How much more do you expect them to pick up the tab for?
But it's not just about individuals. It's about things like the banks that have made record profits over the last couple of years out of the interest rate rises, record unexpected profits. There's clearly, I think, an indisputable case for a windfall tax on the banks for their unexpected excess profits, as well as a wealth tax.
Nonsense.
There's a case for equalising capital gains tax. There's a case for getting rid of...
There's already a tax on profits, Paul.
What?
To income tax rates.
Oh, I mean, give me a break.
That's even more.
Let me just be clear, because I need to go to a break. I'm over a minute over my time. But anyone... Right.
VAT exemption.
In fact, I can't even control myself.
Financial services.
I'm going to come back to you about this lunacy that people say about equalising capital gains and income tax. I can't control myself. We'll do it in 2. See you in 2.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Signs of some hotter weather early next week, but still tomorrow morning a fresh start with some sunshine, and there will be more heavy showers developing through the day in places. But the showers we've seen today, they're tending to fade away. So for most, it's going to be a dry evening, a dry night with lengthy clear spells. We'll keep some showers going near the southwest of Scotland, and it could turn a bit heavier, that rain, as we head towards dawn time. As we head towards dawn, temperatures will dip down to single figures in some rural spots, towns and cities 10 to 12. So a little bit fresher than recent mornings, but generally a fine and sunny start. A drier day tomorrow compared to today across Scotland. Still a few showers in the far northwest, but I suspect quite a bit of sunshine across central and northern Scotland. A wet start, though, in this zone. The far south of Scotland, northwest England, some heavy bursts of rain, particularly across the lakes early doors. Not great on parts of the M6 here. A few scattered showers for Wales, but most of England and Wales also starting dry, fine and sunny. There will be a few showers for Northern Ireland, but again here, likely to be a drier day tomorrow compared to today, so not as many showers around. We will see more showers developing through the day over Wales, Northern England, parts of the Midlands. Could catch a rumble of thunder, flash of lightning too. Not too many showers for East Anglia in the southeast. Most places here dry, and as I mentioned, a drier day for much of Scotland. Slightly warmer too, Edinburgh up to 21. In the sunshine across the southeast, 24, maybe 25, but probably feeling cooler across northern England and Wales with more cloud and more showers. But the showers disappear overnight, and Sunday looks like a cracking day. Can't completely rule out a shower over the Northern Isles, where there'll be a bit more of a breeze, but generally light winds, plenty of blue sky. a fine summer's day on Sunday, and it's going to get a bit warmer, and signs of things also hotting up a little bit, particularly across the south into the early part of next week.
The latest GB News travel.
Good afternoon, I'm Gary King. In Kent, the anti-clockwise M25 long delays after an earlier breakdown just before the Dartford tunnels. Delays going back towards junction 3 at the M20. Anti-clockwise on the M25 in Surrey, long delays. There are 2 lanes closed due to recovery work after a breakdown just before junction 9 at Leatherhead. Delays though back towards junction 12 at the M3. In Leicestershire, the northbound M1 looking busy after an earlier accident just before junction 24 at Nottingham South. Delays though now back towards junction 23 at Loughborough. In Cheshire, the northbound M6 queuing after an earlier breakdown just near to the Lim interchange at the M56 at junction 20, and disruption continues to all Eurostar services following vandalism in France.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
Hello there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm with you until 7 o'clock tonight. Mark Littlewood has just been sharing with me what he's going to see at the cinema tonight. We'll keep it a secret. Look, let's just return to Paul Embry. He's going on about equalising capital gains and income tax. Go on, Paul. What are you saying before the break?
I was just saying that I think it's a reasonable proposal, which I think the government are possibly entertaining. And now, Keir Starmer has never struck me as an economic radical in any sense, nor Rachel Reeves. So if they are entertaining it, then you can probably accept that. It's a fairly moderate, reasonable idea.
No, I don't accept that. I think it's absurd.
To say that when you've got assets, you dispose of those assets, and the capital gains tax should be equalised to income tax.
This is just crazy. It's not radical. It's
of course, it's because you're a libertarian.
No,
you
but
don't believe in tax full stop.
You might as well say that cigarettes should be taxed the same as alcohol, should be taxed the same as food, should be taxed the same as fuel, should be taxed the same as inheritance. These are different things. You don't need to apply the same tax rate to all human activity. These are different things. The tobacco tax and alcohol tax are not the same.
But
there is no case to equalise them.
No reason.
It would not be radical to equalise them. It would be stupid.
There's no reason why you should not equalise capital gains tax.
Because they are different things. Is there any reason why you shouldn't equalise tobacco and alcohol tax?
Whether they're different, in terms of getting money from an asset or in terms of income tax, it's not unreasonable.
So would you equalise tobacco and alcohol tax and fuel duty?
Because they're two different things to say, by definition, therefore...
So petrol, alcohol and tobacco should all be taxed at the same rate?
No, I'm not necessarily making...
Oh, right, so differences.
I'm not saying because capital gains tax is equalised to income tax, therefore there's a case for every single product.
But what, capital gains and income are different things in the same way that alcohol and tobacco are different things.
You probably don't believe in the principle of taxation at all.
I do, of course I do.
OK, so what do you believe in a flat rate tax, 10% or something, that everybody at the top pays exactly the same as the road sweeper? Or do you believe in a progressive taxation system?
I believe in a proportional.
I
believe in a proportional taxation system.
Do you believe in a progressive
I also think you should probably tax things that are bad rather than good.
Do you believe in a progressive taxation where people who are richer pay a greater proportion of tax?
Partly, but that's only because I have an income threshold at the bottom. I reckon if you earn 10 times as much as me, you should pay about 10 times as much in income tax.
Now, I'm not talking in
not
absolute
100
terms.
times.
I'm not talking about absolute terms. I'm talking about in terms of the percentage. The percentage. So, for example,
I just told you.
Do you believe there should be a higher rate of tax for people with higher earnings?
No, I'd prefer a flat rate. But I would give you a baseline of...
So there you go. So the cat's out of the bag. You think that the road sweeper should pay exactly the same flat rate of tax as the millionaire.
No, it's not. You say flat rate, it's proportional.
Sitting in his yacht and benefiting from
it's proportional. If I earn 10 times as much as you, I should pay 10 times as much income tax. Not a million times as much income tax.
You think
the road sweeper should pay less income tax than the bloke in his yacht?
You're talking in absolute terms. The 10% of a road sweeper's income.
Yeah, I don't think you can just take more and more from the rich.
Is far more than 10%. Not in absolute terms, of course, but in terms of the effect on that individual is far more.
But as Michelle has already pointed out,
as
Michelle has already pointed out, we've got a government that spends £12,500 per person to mitigate that.
You think they should pay exactly the same rate of taxation?
I think they should pay a fraction of what millionaires pay.
Let me return to this point that I want to pull you up on, because I think it's absurd what you're saying. You're suggesting that people pay the same amount of tax on capital assets and those gains as what they do on income. You are completely overlooking two fundamental reasons why I think this is absurd. Number one, people are buying assets on post-taxed money. So they've earned their cash, they've paid their tax, and then off they go and invest it. So they've already been taxed on that cash, point one. Point two, there's an element of risk attached. So when you go to work, you know, if you're on, let's just say you earn $11.40 an hour, you know if you go do 2 hours, you're going to get twice your amount of hourly wage. It's in your bank. There's no risk attached whatsoever. When you invest and speculate on assets, they can go up and they can go down. And what you're doing is taking a chance. Yep. And as an economy, as a sensible economy, we need people to take risks, we need people to make investments, and we need people to believe and desire the growth of assets, businesses, and so on and so forth. When you start then trying to equalise these tax, you disincentivise the mindset to take risks and create investments. It's absurd.
There's a 0% tax on gambling, by the way, 0%.
Exactly the argument that you've made there in terms of tax acting as a disincentive could be made in principle against the very idea of taxation at all.
How are you going to incentivise investment and risk?
You could say, actually, we should have no taxation in the country. It should be the law.
No, don't give me silly arguments, because that's not
straw man. I'm simply making the point, Michelle, that the argument that you made there in terms of disincentivising people is an argument against having taxation at all.
No, it's not. What you're saying is absolutely absurd.
You accept taxation, but you're also making an argument against capital gains tax as a principle. So you're not just against.
No, I am not.
Okay, so you're in favour of capital gains tax.
You're
just opposed to
it being the same as income tax.
I am in favour of, if you make gains, then you pay an element of tax. I am wholly against
but that person's making a risk. So you think gambling winnings should be taxed like income tax, correct?
It depends.
If a millionaire wins a race at the Grand National, they should be taxed 45% on their winnings.
It depends how much they win.
But it should be like income tax, you're saying. Equalise it. 45% goes to the government.
I've got to say, because I'm over my time again, and I need to open Dewberry Tavern, because trust me, everyone, I need a drink tonight. I've got to say this. All of you people, Paul, all of you guys that obsess and you fantasise about all of these rich people paying more money, you need to look in the mirror and ask yourself what kind of country you want to live in. Because when you de-incentivise investment... Paul, I've just told you that someone on £150,000 is subsidising approximately 6 people when it comes to public spending. I mean, if you think that's fair, you need to give your head a wobble. And I'm telling you, ladies and gents, trust me on this, if you want to de-incentivise people taking risk, investing things and trying to create growth in this economy, I warn you now, be very careful what you wish for, and time will tell as to whether or not I'm right or whether it's Paul that is right. We'll see you in 2. Thank goodness my bar will be open.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Now, we've got a story and a half to tell you and bring you now. Our very own GB News political correspondent, who we love very much, Catherine Foster, joins us in the studio, and she's smiling, but she wasn't smiling for the past few days.
2 of her sons, Matthew and Andrew, were reported missing in Bali.
I got a text from a friend saying, can you give us a call, a bit worried about them. Then spoke to a girl they'd befriended who was in Sweden, but they'd met on their travels. And she told me that they'd gone up the mountain. By the time I found out, they'd been missing for 30 hours. They'd gone up the mountain on the Tuesday night, British time. This was the Thursday morning, without a guide. And they'd told her it was really hard. And she told them to turn back, but they hadn't. And they'd sent screenshots from this app with this trail that they were following on the app, screenshots of the app in case there was a problem, and a Snapchat of a Matthew avatar at the top. And she said, I know they made it to the top because I could see that his phone had nearly died. But the trail had actually closed many years ago. So the app, we will need to make sure that that gets taken off the app. But, you know, technology saved them in the end because it was the screenshots and it was the messages that they'd sent, but they should never have been without a guide.
But what were you doing during those 30 hours that Mum couldn't, when the phone died and Mum couldn't get in touch? Where were you? What were you up to?
Well, we were trying to figure out the best course of action because it started to pour with rain. The amount of rain created a river, like a stream.
Yeah.
We were like, oh,
yeah,
let's follow the stream downhill, and then the sun set, and we just had to like sleep in the bushes in the jungle.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. GB News royalty with your perfect start to the weekend. Lucky us. Feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions that raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return. And a few surprises along the way. Might be cold in this studio. That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, alongside me Mark Littlewood and Paul Embry. Look, it's that time of the night, thank goodness it's come around. Dewberry Tavern is open, so cheers to each and every one of you at home and to my panellists here. Happy weekend, everybody.
I hope you've paid your tax on that Prosecco.
Well, I can tell you now, who's this? Louise has been in touch saying, Michelle, you're sitting there with millions in the bank. You're nothing but a mouthpiece. I can assure you...
Well said, Louise.
Well, look, anyway, right, my bank balance, I can assure you, is irrelevant. I believe in fairness. I believe in people just not being ridiculously deluded when it comes to tax, because everyone pushing for all of this extra tax, you will be sitting there crying when it goes the opposite way and you've got nothing left to tax, and you'll all be wondering what went wrong. Many people getting in touch about you, Paul Embry. Alvin says that Paul is very good when it comes to topics like trans and Brexit, but is an absolute commie nutter when it comes to the economy. That's a little bit harsh, isn't it? Lots of people enjoying, Chris says he's enjoying the robust argument this evening. You're all very welcome tonight. Look, there's a Pride Festival that's come under some kind of backlash, I can tell you now, because one of the stalls, it had a toss a milkshake at Nigel Farage game. Look at this, I've got it on the screen. Let's cut to the chase. Is this OK? I mean, people obviously think it's hilarious and taking part in it. Your thoughts?
Yeah, it is OK. Look, I quite like Nigel Farage, and it's obviously a bunch of lefties having a go at him, but I say fair enough. What I hate in society is that we all get traumatised and victimised about what looks like a fairground game. What I would say, however, as long as there's a right-wing festival in which we can, I don't know, kick an effigy of Diane Abbott or, you know, throw some coconuts at a picture of Jeremy Corbyn, as long as the lefties won't get agonised about that, then come one, come all. Bear in mind, on the 5th of November every year, we burn an effigy of Guy Fawkes, a Catholic revolutionary. What? Who still burns an effigy of Guy Fawkes?
Yeah, who does that?
You need to get out more. Yeah. Happens out in the sticks, Michelle.
Really?
Yeah, you got too many millions in your bank account in central London. That's what happens out in the sticks.
Yeah, I pay people to light fires for me over there.
It doesn't seem to me this was extreme violence. It's a coconut shy. And I really hope that Farage supporters don't sort of go, oh my God, it's all terrible. But similarly, it should be OK to use effigies of left-wing politicians and do the same.
So no double standards. What do you say, Paul?
Yeah, I tend to agree, actually. I can't get terribly worked up about the thing that's happening at the Pride Festival. But, you know, I can't imagine that the same people would be happy if it were another politician, you know, Diane Abbott or Angela Rayner or something like that. I would imagine...
Jess Phillips.
I would imagine...
But she wouldn't be happy.
Jess Phillips, yeah, we probably wouldn't hear the last of it. And there does seem to be, I think, a certain hypocrisy when it comes to certain politicians. If you see Nigel Farage accosted on the street or Jacob Rees-Mogg, there are too many people on my side of politics who are willing to turn a blind eye to that and say, well, they've asked for it. You know, it's the equivalent of the she was wearing a miniskirt argument, you know. They've asked for it because, you know, they're provocative politicians. Whereas if it was to happen to somebody else, the sort of people that we've mentioned, there would be an outcry over it.
Similarly, Paul, I'm a bit worried that Nigel Nigel Farage. He's given a sensible statement, but I'm a bit worried that folk on the right are going to take umbrage at this. Just water off a duck's back. That's what it should be.
There is a danger that people do say, yeah, it's
everybody's
a
victim,
and it's absolutely wrong, and they play that game, they get into playing that game. They should stand above it and say, actually, we're not worked up about this, but don't be hypocrites when it happens to somebody on your side.
Completely right.
Richard's been in touch saying you're all talking about raising taxes, but taxing people more is not the answer. It's cutting government spending.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. Look, there's lots more we could say tonight, but for now, we shall leave it there. He's got to get to the cinema. He's watching Marvel. Right, have a good weekend, everyone. We'll be back on Monday. Night.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Signs of some hotter weather early next week, but still tomorrow morning a fresh start with some sunshine, and there will be more heavy showers developing through the day in places. But the showers we've seen today, they're tending to fade away. So for most, it's going to be a dry evening, a dry night with lengthy clear spells. We'll keep some showers going near the southwest of Scotland, and it could turn a bit heavier, that rain, as we head towards dawn time. As we head towards dawn, temperatures will dip down to single figures in some rural spots, towns and cities, 10 to 12. So a little bit fresher than recent mornings, but generally a fine and sunny start. A drier day tomorrow compared to today across Scotland. Still a few showers in the far northwest, but I suspect quite a bit of sunshine across central and northern Scotland. A wet start, though, in this zone. The far south of Scotland, northwest England, some heavy bursts of rain, particularly across the lakes early doors. Not great on parts of the M6 here. A few scattered showers for Wales, but most of England and Wales also starting dry, fine and sunny. There will be a few showers for Northern Ireland, but again here, likely to be a drier day tomorrow compared to today, so not as many showers around. We will see more showers developing through the day over Wales, Northern England, parts of the Midlands. Could catch a rumble of thunder, flash of lightning too. Not too many showers for East Anglia in the southeast. Most places here dry, and as I mentioned, a drier day for much of Scotland. Slightly warmer too, Edinburgh up to 21. In the sunshine across the southeast, 24, maybe 25, but probably feeling cooler across northern England and Wales with more cloud and more showers. But the showers disappear overnight, and Sunday looks like a cracking day. Can't completely rule out a shower over the Northern Isles, where there'll be a bit more of a breeze, but generally light winds, plenty of blue sky. A fine summer's day on Sunday, and it's going to get a bit warmer, and signs of things also hotting up a little bit, particularly across the south into the early part of next week.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Gary King. In Surrey, the anti-clockwise M25, there's a lane closed, long delays after an earlier breakdown just before junction 9 at Leatherhead. Delays so back towards 11 at Chertsey. Staffordshire northbound M6, there's a lane closed and long delays due to a breakdown. It's between junctions 16 at Stoke-on-Trent and 17 at Sandbach. Cheshire on the northbound M6, there are 2 lanes closed and delays after a breakdown between junction 18 at Holmes Chapel and 19 at Knutsford. In West Yorkshire at Nottingley, the A1 southbound has a lane closed and delays. That's all due to a breakdown between the M62 at Nottingley and the A639 at Doncaster. And still delays of 90 minutes and cancellations at Eurostar at St Pancras International due to vandalism in France.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Don't miss your chance to win our Super Summer Giveaway. With your chance to win £30,000 cash, our biggest cash prize to date. Which means you get to spend every single penny however you like. What plans would you make with an extra £30,000 cash in your bank account? Take your family on the ultimate holiday, buy that treat that's always seemed out of reach, or just put it in the bank for a later date. However you'd spend it, make sure you don't miss out. For another